It was a day like any other, the city alive with its usual rhythm of people rushing, cars honking, and the distant hum of life that seemed both overwhelming and comforting. She walked down the crowded street, her mind occupied with simple thoughts about her work and the errands she had yet to finish. There was a calmness in her steps, an inner world she carried along with her, almost invisible to the busy crowd around her. Yet she couldn't shake the feeling that something unusual was about to happen. Though she didn't know what it could be, he was standing by the small cafe on the corner, looking at the menu board with a thoughtful expression. He wasn't usually the kind to linger, but today, something made him pause. He was not expecting anyone or anything, yet he felt an inexplicable pull to stay just a little longer. Life had been moving quickly for him, filled with obligations and responsibilities that often left him tired and disconnected. But in that moment, there was a quiet space where the world seemed to slow, and he noticed details he usually ignored, the way the sunlight hit the sidewalk, the soft laughter of people passing by, and the gentle rustle of leaves in a nearby tree. She glanced toward the cafe, drawn for reasons she couldn't explain. Perhaps it was the aroma of fresh coffee, or the small sense of calm that seemed to radiate from that corner of the street. Their eyes met briefly across the crowd, and for a fleeting second, the city around them seemed to blur, leaving only the faint recognition of each other's presence. Neither smiled, yet there was an understanding, a quiet acknowledgement that something in that brief encounter mattered more than they could immediately grasp. Days passed, but neither could stop thinking about that moment. The memory lingered, not as a dramatic event, but as a subtle, unspoken connection that seemed to grow in importance each time they recalled it. She found herself taking the same route on her walks, hoping to catch another glimpse, while he started noticing the corners of the city he used to ignore. Life moved forward, as it always did, yet both of them carried a small, private hope that their paths would cross again. The next meeting was almost accidental. She was leaving a small bookstore, holding a worn-out novel she had wanted for weeks. He was entering the street from the opposite direction, a bag of groceries in one hand and a newspaper tucked under his arm. As they passed each other, their shoulders brushed lightly, a simple touch that sent a subtle shiver of recognition through both of them. They looked up at the same time, and this time, the smile came naturally, as if it had been waiting beneath the surface for days. They stopped, slightly awkward at first, unsure of what to say. He cleared his throat, and she laughed softly, breaking the tension. Conversation began cautiously, starting with comments about the weather and the small bookstore, but soon flowing more freely. They discovered shared interests, simple joys that connected them in ways neither had expected. There was no rush, no pressure, just the gentle unfolding of two people beginning to notice each other more deeply as the afternoon wore on. They found themselves walking together, talking about small things that mattered in unexpected ways. He told her about the little cafe he liked, where the barista knew his name and always remembered his favorite order. She mentioned the quiet park near her apartment, where she sometimes went to read or think. Each detail shared felt like a thread weaving them closer, an invisible bond forming between them that seemed natural, inevitable, for the first time in a long while. Both felt a sense of ease and comfort in someone else's company. There was a softness in their conversation, a gentle curiosity about each other's lives, dreams, and experiences. They didn't need to fill every silence with words. Even the quiet moments between them felt meaningful. The world around them continued its usual pace, but within that small bubble of time, everything seemed suspended, focused entirely on the simple act of being present with each other. Days turned into weeks, and their encounters became more frequent. They would run into each other at the cafe, the park, or simply on their walks. Each meeting, a small adventure of shared smiles, laughter, and quiet moments. Friends and colleagues noticed the change in them, the subtle brightness in their eyes, the way they carried themselves, and the small happiness that seemed to follow them like a shadow. There was something magnetic about the connection, a warmth that didn't need to be explained, only felt as they spent more time together. They began to share personal tales of childhood memories, small victories, and even moments of struggle. Each revelation was met with empathy and understanding, creating a foundation of trust that grew stronger with every conversation. They didn't rush to define their relationship or label their feelings. Instead, they allowed the connection to develop naturally, understanding that the most profound bonds often grow quietly, without force or expectation. One evening, as the sun set over the city, casting golden light on the buildings and streets, they found themselves sitting on a low wall near the park. The air was cool, filled with the scent of blooming flowers and the distant sounds of life continuing around them. They didn't speak for a long time, simply enjoying the presence of each other. Then, almost simultaneously, they realized the depth of what had been quietly growing between them. It wasn't just attraction or curiosity, it was the beginning of something far more significant. A recognition of a rare and genuine connection that had arrived unexpectedly that night. They parted with a gentle promise to meet again, a sense of anticipation and hope lingering in the quiet moments before sleep. Both returned to their separate lives, but the encounter had changed something fundamental. Life still had its challenges and demands, but there was now a lightness in their hearts, a reason to look forward to the next day. The connection they had discovered was more than fleeting. It was a gentle reminder that even in a world that often felt chaotic and impersonal, true connection could be found, sometimes in the most unexpected of places. In the days that followed, they continued to explore the city together, sharing small adventures, laughter, and thoughtful conversations. They discovered the joy of simple pleasures, walking without purpose, trying new foods, attending small events, and quietly observing life around them. Each experience deepened their understanding of each other, revealing the subtleties of personality, kindness, and character that often went unnoticed by the rest of the world. They began to see not only the person in front of them, but also the potential of a shared life, built on trust, respect, and genuine care. The city, once a blur of motion and noise, became a backdrop for the unfolding story of their connection. Every street corner, cafe, and park held memories now, small landmarks of their growing bond. They learned to communicate not just with words, but with gestures, glances, and the silent understanding that comes from being truly seen by another person. Each day, they discovered new layers of familiarity and comfort, reinforcing the sense that they had found something rare and invaluable. Through these early days, they also encountered challenges, though minor, that tested the strength of their bond. Misunderstandings arose, moments of doubt crept in, and the realities of their separate lives occasionally threatened to interfere. Yet each challenge was met with patience and care, with honest communication and a willingness to understand rather than judge. It was in these moments that the depth of their connection became apparent, not in grand gestures, but in the quiet resilience and commitment to each other that grew steadily. The love that was beginning to bloom was not loud or dramatic. It was a gentle, persistent force shaping their lives in subtle but meaningful ways. They found joy in the ordinary and comfort in the presence of each other. The city, once indifferent and vast, now felt intimate and alive. A place where two hearts had found each other in the most unexpected of ways. They were no longer strangers passing in the crowd, but companions discovering the possibilities of life together. One small step at a time. As the days passed, their connection grew stronger. Yet life's realities began to make themselves known. She noticed at first the subtle pull between what she wanted and what her responsibilities demanded. There were moments when she had to choose between meeting him or finishing tasks that could not wait. Even as her heart urged her to spend more time together, her mind reminded her of deadlines, family matters, and the quiet responsibilities that defined her life. He too felt it, the constant tension between personal ambitions and the magnetic pull of someone who was slowly becoming central to his world. They tried to navigate this delicate balance, each learning the art of compromise without losing themselves. Small conversations about schedules and priorities became necessary, but they never lost the warmth and care that had first drawn them together. Each message, each call, became a thread keeping them close, even when circumstances kept them apart. The waiting, the brief periods of absence, only seemed to make their moments together more precious. One evening, they met at the same little cafe where their first extended conversation had happened. It had become a quiet ritual, a sanctuary where they could step away from life's demands and just be present with each other. They sat across from one another, a warm glow from the overhead lamps casting soft shadows around them. Conversation flowed naturally, beginning with ordinary observations, but gradually deepening. They spoke about childhood memories, the kind that seemed trivial to outsiders, but were sacred to them. Forming a bridge between the past and the present, he told her about the small town he had grown up in. How the streets had felt wide and open, how the simple act of running barefoot on summer evenings had been freedom itself. She listened, fascinated, and shared stories of her own upbringing, the cramped apartment that had felt like a world of adventure, the quiet evenings spent reading by a window, the dreams that had seemed too big for her small surroundings. In sharing these stories, they revealed not just their experiences, but the essence of who they were, slowly peeling back layers that few people ever saw. They laughed at memories that now seemed almost absurd, like the time he had tried to cook dinner for his family and ended up with a burnt mess. Or when she had accidentally locked herself out of her own apartment and had to climb in through the balcony. Each story brought them closer, a tapestry of moments that made them feel known and understood in a way that was both comforting and exhilarating. Even in ordinary tales, there was extraordinary meaning, because they were learning to see each other fully. Yet, alongside this growing closeness, there were insecurities that crept in. She sometimes wondered if he would grow tired of her quiet nature, or if his world, with its constant motion and social demands, was too vast for someone like her. He too questioned whether she could truly accept all aspects of his life, the responsibilities, the pressures, the times when he would be distant. They had not yet faced the larger obstacles, but even small doubts had a way of making hearts race and minds question the future. These moments of uncertainty, however, were always met with honesty. They began to confide not just in each other, but in themselves, acknowledging fears that had been silently carried for years. She admitted her worry that she might hold him back or not be enough for the life he envisioned. He admitted the fear that he might not be capable of giving her the consistency she deserved. These conversations, though uncomfortable at times, became pillars of trust, showing that connection was not just about joy, but also about courage, vulnerability, and acceptance. As their relationship deepened, they began to notice the small, almost invisible ways in which they influenced each other. She found herself more confident, taking small risks in her work and personal life. Encouraged by his quiet faith in her abilities, he discovered patience and gentleness he had never fully appreciated, learning to slow down and notice the subtle joys of life. Their companionship was a mirror, reflecting strengths they hadn't fully recognized and gently pointing out areas where growth was possible. Life, however, rarely allowed for uninterrupted happiness. One day she received news that required immediate attention, a family matter that demanded her presence and emotional energy. It wasn't a crisis, but it required careful thought, travel, and time away from her daily routine. At the same time, he was facing pressure at work, unexpected tasks that could not be postponed, forcing him into long hours and late nights. The timing was unfortunate, and for the first time, felt the weight of distance stretching between them. Even so, they handled it with care and understanding. They wrote letters and exchanged messages, sometimes long and detailed, other times brief, but filled with emotion. Each note became a lifeline, a reminder that even when circumstances forced them apart, their connection remained strong. There were moments of frustration and longing, but never resentment, because both understood that life sometimes demanded sacrifices and patience. During this period, they also began to explore the city together more deliberately, seeking quiet corners, hidden parks, and overlooked streets where they could steal moments away from the crowd. Each discovery felt like a secret shared, a small world that belonged only to them. They would sit on benches, observing life around them, or find cafes tucked away from the main streets, enjoying the comfort of familiarity and shared experience. Even in silence, their companionship spoke volumes. The mere act of being together a source of peace, the emotional intimacy they shared became more pronounced as they navigated these challenges. They began to discuss their dreams and fears more openly, contemplating the future without pressure or expectation. She spoke of ambitions she had kept private for years, while he shared aspirations he had rarely voiced aloud. Each revelation was met with encouragement and thoughtful listening, reinforcing the sense that they could be fully themselves in each other's presence. There was no judgment, only a patient curiosity and a growing admiration for the courage it took to reveal one's true self. Amid these moments, small gestures carried significant weight. He would bring her coffee when she was too busy to step outside, a quiet reminder that he was thinking of her. She would leave notes in unexpected places, sharing thoughts and encouragement. Sometimes simple phrases that made him smile in the middle of a hectic day. These acts, unremarkable to anyone else, became symbols of their care and commitment, weaving a fabric of connection that strengthened even in the face of external pressures. One afternoon, they attended a small art exhibit together. Wandering through quiet halls filled with paintings and sculptures, they paused to discuss pieces that resonated with them, sometimes in disagreement, other times in harmony. The conversations were rich, revealing values, tastes, and perspectives that deepened their understanding of each other. They noticed details about one another, the way he considered every word before speaking, the way she tilted her head in thought, the quiet intensity in her eyes as she shared insights. These observations were not fleeting. They became part of the intimate knowledge they held of each other. Through all these experiences, their bond continued to strengthen, even when life demanded patience and resilience. They were learning that love was not only about joy and excitement, but also about endurance, empathy, and the willingness to embrace life's imperfections. The distance, the challenges, and the daily struggles became part of the narrative, a reminder that meaningful connection is often tested and strengthened through trials. However small they may seem, as the weeks turned into months, they began to plan small adventures together, trips to nearby towns, quiet evenings exploring local traditions, and simple picnics in the park where they could talk without interruptions. Each activity, no matter how ordinary, was imbued with significance because they shared it together. They discovered that love was not only about grand gestures, but also about noticing the details, savoring the moments, and creating memories that became a shared history. They also encountered moments of tension, small disagreements that tested patience and understanding. Sometimes it was a matter of differing opinions or miscommunication. Other times it was the fatigue of juggling responsibilities alongside personal desires. Yet, every challenge was met with dialogue, reflection, and compromise, reinforcing the growing trust and respect between them. They learned that connection was not about avoiding conflict, but about navigating it with care and empathy, strengthening the bond rather than weakening it. Through all of this, they began to recognize a transformation in themselves. She felt stronger, more confident in her choices and abilities, inspired by the encouragement and faith he offered. He discovered depth, sensitivity, and patience he had not fully appreciated in himself, nurtured by her presence and understanding. Their relationship was a mirror, reflecting growth, resilience, and the quiet beauty of two people learning to live alongside each other with respect and affection. The rhythm of their lives had begun to feel steady, a comforting familiarity that both cherished, until life introduced a sudden challenge neither had expected. It started subtly, with missed messages, postponed meetings, and moments of distraction. At first, they brushed it off as the natural ebb and flow of busy lives. But soon, the distance became more pronounced, and the certainty they had begun to take for granted wavered. She received news that required her to travel to another city, a situation that could not be avoided. It was not a long-term relocation, but it was enough to stretch the fragile routine they had established. At the same time, he was facing a critical project at work that demanded extra hours and focused attention. The overlap of these responsibilities created tension neither could ignore, and the moments they had previously shared so effortlessly became rare and precious. The sudden scarcity of time made them painfully aware of how much they valued each other. When they managed to communicate, it was often hurried and fragmented. Text messages replaced long conversations, brief phone calls replaced lingering afternoons together. The tone of their interactions was warm, but there was an unmistakable undercurrent of longing and worry. Both felt the pressure of uncertainty, the fear that the distance might introduce cracks in what had been so carefully nurtured. Even small misunderstandings seemed amplified, each one leaving them second-guessing their words and actions. During this period, they both confronted personal doubts that had previously been quiet. She questioned whether her responsibilities and commitments would prevent her from being fully present, while he wondered if he could handle the pressure of work without becoming distant or distracted from the relationship. These doubts were not dramatic or alarming, but they were significant, shaping their emotional landscape and influencing how they interacted with each other. The love they felt was real, but real love, they realized, also required endurance. One evening, after a particularly long day, they arranged to meet briefly in a small park they both knew well. The moment they saw each other, the weight of the past few weeks seemed to lift slightly, replaced by relief and familiarity. They sat on a worn bench beneath a tree, the soft glow of streetlights illuminating their faces. There was an initial silence, heavy with unspoken thoughts, but eventually they began to speak. Each shared their struggles over the past days, the missed calls, the stress, the frustration of life interfering with what they valued most. It was a difficult conversation, but necessary. They spoke with honesty and care, not blaming each other, but acknowledging the reality of their situation. In that moment, they discovered the strength of their connection, realizing that their bond was not dependent on constant presence or uninterrupted time together, but on the willingness to understand, support, and communicate even when circumstances were challenging. The act of listening, truly listening, became a reaffirmation of trust and commitment. After that evening, they approached their relationship with a renewed sense of patience and perspective. They accepted that there would be moments of absence and distraction, but they also recognized the importance of being intentional when together. Each meeting, each conversation became more meaningful because it was chosen and valued rather than taken for granted. They learned to celebrate small victories, a shared meal, a quiet walk, a simple message of encouragement as milestones of connection rather than minor events, even amid challenges. They continued to discover new aspects of each other. She revealed a passion for art and music that she had rarely shared with others, and he opened up about his love for writing, a hobby he had kept private. They spent hours discussing ideas, dreams, and inspirations, finding joy in the richness of shared understanding. These moments, small yet profound, reinforced the idea that true connection was built not just on proximity, but on mutual respect, curiosity, and genuine interest in each other's inner worlds. Yet, the greatest test of their bond came unexpectedly. A miscommunication occurred, trivial in nature, but magnified by exhaustion and stress. Words were misinterpreted, intentions questioned, and emotions stirred in ways neither had anticipated. For a brief time, both felt the sting of doubt, wondering if the relationship could withstand even minor friction. They experienced frustration, sadness, and a longing for the certainty they had once taken for granted. In these moments, they realized that love was not always smooth, and that resilience was as essential as affection. Instead of avoiding the discomfort, they confronted it. They set aside time to speak openly, expressing their feelings without judgment or defensiveness. Apologies were given where necessary, and clarifications were shared with patience. Through this process, they discovered that conflict, while unpleasant, could serve as a catalyst for growth, revealing hidden vulnerabilities and creating space for deeper understanding. By facing difficulties together, they strengthened the foundation of trust and demonstrated that connection could endure, even when tested. The days that followed were a blend of ordinary life and deliberate acts of closeness. They wrote notes to each other, sometimes simple, sometimes elaborate, sharing thoughts and encouragement even when separated. They found small ways to be present in each other's lives, despite the distance. A favorite coffee ordered to be delivered, a message to wish a good day, a photograph of something that reminded them of shared memories. These gestures, though small, carried immense emotional weight, reminding them that love could be expressed through thoughtfulness, attention, and care. Amid these efforts, they also discovered a growing sense of interdependence that was healthy rather than burdensome. They learned to rely on each other for emotional support, motivation, and reassurance, while still maintaining individuality and personal growth. This balance, delicate yet essential, became a guiding principle in how they approached both challenges and joys. Each act of care, each moment of understanding, reinforced the idea that love was not just an emotion but an ongoing choice to engage, nurture, and support one another. Through this period, they also encountered moments of beauty and wonder that reminded them why their connection mattered so deeply. A shared sunrise, a quiet conversation under a starry sky, or a spontaneous walk through a rain-soaked street became emblematic of their bond. These moments were not grand or dramatic, yet they carried significance because they were shared with intention and awareness. The ordinary became extraordinary simply because it was experienced together, and each shared experience deepened the emotional resonance of their relationship. After the period of tension and distance, a sense of renewal began to settle over their relationship. They had both faced the reality of life's interruptions and learned how fragile yet strong a bond could be. With this understanding, they approached each encounter with intention, savoring every shared moment and allowing themselves to rediscover the joy of connection that had first drawn them together one quiet afternoon. They met at the park that had become a symbol of their growing intimacy. The familiar benches, the soft rustle of leaves, and the distant laughter of children created an atmosphere of calm. They walked side by side, sharing observations about the world around them. He noticed how the sunlight filtered through her hair, and she observed the thoughtful expression that often appeared when he considered something deeply. These small observations, unnoticed by others, reinforced their awareness of each other and the quiet beauty of simply being present. They began spending more deliberate time together, intentionally creating opportunities to connect and grow. Weekends became moments for exploration, visiting local markets, discovering quiet streets, and sharing meals at small tucked-away restaurants. Each experience was an opportunity to see the world through the other's eyes, to appreciate perspectives and tastes that were different yet complementary. They found joy in small adventures, recognizing that shared experiences, no matter how simple, became lasting memories that strengthened their bond. In this period, they also reflected on personal growth. She realized that her confidence had increased, that she had learned to assert herself in situations where she might have been hesitant before. He noticed that he had become more patient, more thoughtful, more attentive to the needs of others, qualities that had deepened their connection. Together, they celebrated these small transformations, understanding that part of their love story was the way they inspired and nurtured each other to become better versions of themselves. They also began to consider the impact of their connection on the people around them. Friends and family noticed a shift, a lightness in their presence, and a sense of harmony that was contagious. Their relationship, once private and quietly cherished, began to radiate positivity, offering hope and inspiration to those who observed it. They realized that love, when genuine and nurturing, can extend beyond the individuals involved, touching the lives of others in ways both subtle and profound. During this time, they faced moments of challenge, though less severe than before. Misunderstandings occasionally arose, and life continued to demand attention. Yet they approached these situations with a sense of maturity and calm. Each difficulty became an opportunity to practice empathy, communication, and patience. They learned to listen actively, to express feelings without blame, and to embrace the imperfections of both life and each other. These lessons reinforced the foundation of their bond, proving that love is not merely about affection, but about conscious effort, understanding, and resilience. One evening, they decided to spend time at a small community event, a gathering that featured local music and art. They wandered through the stalls, observing crafts, sampling food, and enjoying the live performances. In this ordinary setting, extraordinary moments emerged. A street musician played a song that resonated with both of them, and they shared a quiet smile, an unspoken acknowledgement of the connection between the music and the bond they shared. They realized that joy could be found in simple experiences, and that shared presence transformed ordinary events into meaningful memories. They also began exploring deeper aspects of their lives, discussing long-term dreams and aspirations. She spoke of goals she had kept private, ambitions that had seemed too far out of reach, while he shared plans and ideas that had been confined to his imagination. In these conversations, they discovered a profound sense of support and encouragement. Each revelation was met with empathy, thoughtful advice, and genuine enthusiasm. They realized that a strong relationship does not diminish individuality, but enhances it, providing a safe space where dreams can flourish in their day-to-day interactions. They continued to demonstrate care in subtle, meaningful ways. She left small notes with words of encouragement, reminders of their shared experiences, or simply playful messages that made him smile. He found ways to lighten her day, bringing small gifts, preparing favorite meals, or creating moments of surprise that communicated thoughtfulness and attention. These gestures, though seemingly minor, accumulated over time, forming an emotional wealth that nurtured their relationship and deepened the intimacy they shared. As their bond deepened, they encountered opportunities to influence and inspire those around them. They volunteered together at local initiatives, shared time with friends in need of support, and offered encouragement to people navigating challenges in their own lives. They realized that love extended beyond the private sphere, and that their connection could serve as a quiet example of empathy, kindness, and commitment. Through their actions, they demonstrated that love, when nurtured thoughtfully, can ripple outward, creating positive impact in ways that are often unseen but deeply meaningful. The emotional depth of their relationship continued to grow as they faced moments of reflection. They spent evenings discussing not only their experiences, but also the philosophical questions of life, the meaning of happiness, the role of purpose, and the importance of human connection. These conversations were not heavy or forced, but emerged naturally from shared curiosity and genuine interest in understanding the world together. Through dialogue, they strengthened not only their emotional bond, but also a shared vision of a life guided by mutual respect, understanding, and compassion. They also discovered the power of forgiveness and acceptance. In moments where one might falter, misunderstand, or act out of frustration, the other responded with patience and empathy. This created a safe emotional space where vulnerabilities could be expressed without fear of judgment. They learned that true connection requires both accountability and compassion, a balance that fosters trust and strengthens intimacy over time. As they approached the end of this chapter in their journey, they began to sense a shift in their dynamic. The challenges they had faced, the growth they had experienced, and the shared experiences they had cultivated all contributed to a deep sense of security and trust. They no longer relied solely on the excitement of new discovery, but had developed a steady, enduring bond characterized by mutual understanding, care, and the ability to face life together. In the midst of this growth, they continued to celebrate small joys, a quiet walk in the park, sharing a favorite meal, listening to music together, or simply holding a conversation in comfortable silence became treasured moments. These experiences reinforced the principle that love is found in both grand gestures and everyday interactions, and that the accumulation of small, meaningful moments creates a profound and lasting connection. As the seasons changed, their relationship continued to grow in strength and depth, evolving into a connection that seemed to touch every aspect of their lives. What had begun as a chance meeting and quiet curiosity had become a powerful bond, built on shared experiences, trust, and the understanding that love was both a choice and a responsibility. Each day offered new opportunities to explore not only their relationship, but the impact it could have on the world around them. They began to recognize the ripple effect of their connection. Friends and family often commented on the warmth and positivity they brought into any room, the subtle way their affections seemed to elevate others' spirits. They realized that their love could extend beyond themselves, influencing people they might never have imagined. Small acts of kindness, gentle encouragement, and consistent care for one another became a source of inspiration, showing that love, when nurtured consciously, could create quiet yet meaningful change. Their adventures together continued, both simple and extraordinary. They would visit local charities, volunteering to help those in need, finding fulfillment and giving back to the community. They explored nearby towns, discovering hidden corners of the world and sharing experiences that became part of the fabric of their shared history. Every day, no matter how ordinary, became an opportunity to deepen their bond, learn about one another, and create memories that would last a lifetime. The challenges that life continued to present were met with patience and collaboration. They faced unexpected setbacks, scares, financial stress, and professional pressures, but always approached them as a team. Each challenge became a lesson in empathy, resilience, and communication. They discovered that love is not only about celebration and joy, but also about navigating hardship with grace, offering support without judgment, and finding strength in unity. These trials, rather than weakening their bond, strengthened it, showing that enduring love can survive even the most unpredictable circumstances over time. They began to consider the future more consciously. Conversations about long-term goals, shared values, and life aspirations became an integral part of their dialogue. They discussed the possibility of living together, planning projects, and supporting each other's ambitions. These conversations were not driven by pressure or fear, but by a shared desire to create a life built on mutual respect, understanding, and shared purpose. They realized that love is a living, evolving force that requires intention, attention, care. They also nurtured their emotional and intellectual growth together. Evenings spent reading, discussing books, or sharing perspectives on current events became common. They challenged each other thoughtfully, asking questions that encouraged reflection and introspection. These discussions were never confrontational, but rooted in curiosity, empathy, and a desire to understand one another more deeply. Through these exchanges, they found that connection was enriched not only by shared experiences, but by the ability to grow alongside each other intellectually and emotionally. The couple also discovered the significance of small, meaningful gestures. She would occasionally prepare his favorite meal, leaving a note that reflected thoughtfulness and attention to detail. He would surprise her with small tokens of care, flowers picked from a quiet corner, a favorite book left on her doorstep, or a simple message expressing appreciation. These gestures, though modest, communicated profound love, reinforcing the understanding that enduring affection is often demonstrated through consistency, attentiveness, and the celebration of everyday moments. Their relationship also inspired those around them. Friends who witnessed their interactions began to reflect on their own connections. Seeking to nurture relationships with greater attention and care, family members noticed a change in the atmosphere, a warmth and lightness that radiated from their bond. The love they shared became a quiet model of resilience, empathy, and partnership, demonstrating that genuine connection could influence not only their own lives, but the broader world in subtle, meaningful ways. They celebrated milestones together, not as grand events, but as intimate recognitions of growth, commitment, and shared journey. Anniversaries, personal achievements, and simple moments of reflection were marked with gratitude and acknowledgement of each other's presence. They recognized that the depth of their bond was measured not by spectacular gestures, but by the accumulation of shared experiences, understanding, and trust. Each milestone became a reminder that love is cultivated over time, through patience, attention, and unwavering care. As their connection deepened, they began to dream collectively, planning initiatives that could benefit others. They discussed starting small community projects, helping neighbors, or creating spaces for shared learning and growth. These ambitions were driven by the understanding that their love could extend beyond their personal sphere, creating positive impact in ways both tangible and intangible. They realized that love, at its most powerful, inspires action, fosters empathy, and encourages others to connect and care. Their communication had also evolved, becoming intuitive and empathetic. Words were still important, but they discovered the strength of nonverbal understanding. A touch, a glance, a shared smile could convey more than lengthy conversation. They learned to recognize moods, anticipate needs, and offer support before it was even requested. This depth of understanding brought a profound sense of security and peace. creating an environment where both could thrive emotionally, intellectually, and spiritually. They continued to grow individually while remaining deeply connected. Personal passions, hobbies, and ambitions were nurtured alongside the relationship, allowing both to maintain a sense of self while contributing to a shared life. This balance, delicate yet essential, ensured that the bond remained dynamic, resilient, and enriching. They discovered that love does not confine but supports, that true connection encourages growth rather than stifling individuality. As time went on, they reflected on their journey together, the chance meeting, the small moments of connection, the challenges that tested their bond, and the deliberate care that nurtured their relationship. Each memory carried significance, a testament to the patience, understanding, and intentional effort that love requires. They realized that their story was more than a private experience. It was an example of how love can transform lives, create meaning, and inspire those who witness it. They also embraced the power of forgiveness and acceptance, recognizing that imperfections are part of the human experience. Misunderstandings were approached with empathy, and mistakes were met with grace. They discovered that love flourishes in an environment of understanding, patience, and mutual respect. By creating a safe space for vulnerability and growth, they built a bond that was not fragile or fleeting, but enduring and resilient. In the final stages of their journey, they focused on shared purpose and contribution. Their love became a force that motivated action, nurtured others, and created a sense of community. Together, they initiated small projects, supported friends and neighbors, and fostered environments of care and encouragement. They understood that their connection, while deeply personal, had the power to influence others, demonstrating that love is most impactful when it extends beyond the self. Ultimately, the story of their love became a narrative of transformation, resilience, and positive influence. From a chance encounter to a deeply intentional relationship, they had discovered that love is a choice, an effort, and a source of inspiration. It is nurtured through attention, patience, empathy, and shared growth. Their bond not only enriched their own lives, but also quietly touched the lives of others, illustrating that love, when genuine and intentional, has the power to create lasting impact. Even after years of building a strong and lasting bond, they found that love was not static. Life continued to bring challenges, small and large, but they had learned to face each with patience and understanding. The foundation of trust, empathy, and shared growth allowed them to navigate uncertainty with confidence, knowing that together they could endure whatever came their way. One of the most powerful realizations they shared was that love grows not only through joy, but also through intentional effort and vulnerability. Each day, they made choices that reinforced their connection, listening when the other spoke, offering support without expectation, celebrating achievements, and acknowledging struggles. They had learned to communicate openly and honestly, even when it was uncomfortable, recognizing that avoidance only weakened the bond. Their commitment to presence and attention became the quiet strength of their relationship. They also began to think about the broader impact of their love. They realized that their partnership could be a model for others' friends, family, colleagues, and even strangers who witnessed the way they treated one another. Small acts of kindness and support, once private gestures, became examples of how love could influence a community. They offered guidance and encouragement to those seeking advice or reassurance, demonstrating that connection and compassion could ripple outward, touching lives far beyond their immediate circle. During this period, they found new ways to explore the world together. Trips to quiet towns, nature walks, and visits to cultural events offered opportunities to deepen their understanding of each other and of the world. They marveled at the simple pleasures, a sunrise viewed from a hilltop, a shared meal prepared with care, the laughter of children in a park. These experiences were treasured not for extravagance, but for the shared presence and awareness they fostered. Each moment became a building block of memory, a reminder that love is enriched through attention and shared appreciation. Challenges continued to emerge, though their impact had shifted. Financial concerns, health considerations, and professional responsibilities required both practical solutions and emotional support. Together, they navigated these obstacles, learning to lean on one another without losing independence. Each challenge became a chance to reinforce trust, practice patience, and deepen empathy. They realized that true love is resilient because it evolves alongside life. Adapting to circumstances while remaining rooted in mutual respect and care, they also explored personal growth. Alongside shared experiences, each encouraged the other to pursue interests, hobbies, and ambitions. Knowing that individual fulfillment strengthens a relationship, she took on creative projects she had long postponed, supported by his encouragement and advice. He pursued initiatives that required courage and persistence, inspired by her unwavering faith in his abilities. Their love created a safe space for exploration, experimentation, and self-improvement. Enriching both their individual and collective journeys, their connection became a source of emotional resilience. In moments of stress, disappointment, or doubt, they turned to each other for grounding. They developed rituals that provided comfort, a simple morning routine, shared quiet evenings, handwritten notes of encouragement, or unexpected messages of affection. These rituals, though modest, became anchors that reinforced the stability and depth of their bond. They learned that love is sustained not only through passion, but through consistency, mindfulness, and the intention to nurture. They also discovered that joy and humor were essential to sustaining connection. Even during stressful periods, laughter became a tool for relief and bonding. They found amusement in everyday situations, a minor mishap while cooking, an awkward encounter with a neighbor, or a playful debate about trivial matters. Humor, they realized, allowed them to approach life's challenges with perspective and lightness. Reinforcing that love thrives not only in seriousness, but in shared delight and playful understanding, their love inspired them to be more mindful of their surroundings. They noticed the needs of others, extending help and encouragement without expectation. Whether it was assisting a neighbor, supporting a friend in need, or contributing to community initiatives, their actions reflected the values cultivated through their bond. They understood that love is not confined to private spaces. When nurtured consciously, it can radiate outward, influencing others and fostering a culture of care and empathy. They also devoted time to reflection and introspection, individually and together. They revisited past experiences, acknowledging lessons learned, mistakes corrected, and milestones celebrated. These reflections reinforced gratitude and humility, reminding them that growth and love are continuous processes. By sharing these reflections, they strengthened emotional intimacy, deepening understanding and reinforcing the importance of communication, patience, and mutual respect. The evolving nature of their bond became evident as they explored new dimensions of connection. They discovered that intimacy is multidimensional, encompassing emotional support, intellectual engagement, shared experiences, and physical closeness. By prioritizing each aspect, they cultivated a rich, layered relationship that met both practical and emotional needs. This balance allowed them to thrive as individuals while strengthening their partnership, creating a dynamic that was resilient, adaptive, and deeply fulfilling. As their story progressed, they began to envision long-term contributions together. They considered ways to mentor, support, and uplift others. Recognizing that their love provided a unique platform for positive impact, they collaborated on projects that addressed social needs, offered guidance to younger individuals seeking support, and nurtured environments of trust, compassion, and encouragement. Their bond, they realized, was not only a personal sanctuary, but a source of inspiration and empowerment for those around them. They also discovered the transformative power of forgiveness and acceptance. Differences in opinion, misunderstandings, or occasional lapses in judgment were addressed with empathy, reflection, and open communication. They learned that imperfections were not obstacles but opportunities for growth and understanding. By embracing each other fully, including flaws and vulnerabilities, they cultivated a love that was enduring, resilient, and profoundly human. Throughout Part 6, they continued to find meaning in shared life experiences. Simple acts, preparing meals together, taking evening walks, celebrating achievements, or supporting one another during challenges, became meaningful markers of connection. They appreciated the ordinary alongside the extraordinary, understanding that sustained love is cultivated through daily attention, shared effort, and the conscious choice to value one another as they looked toward the future. They felt a deep sense of hope and purpose. Their love, tested through challenges and strengthened by shared effort, had become a guiding force in their lives. They approached each day with intention, seeking to grow individually and collectively, to nurture their bond, and to positively influence the world around them. Their story, they realized, was ongoing, a living testament to the power of love to transform, sustain, and inspire.